Greetings, ladies and metalgents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Humans Are Afraid of War, written by firefighter Raven. Gesilik leaned back in his favorite chair and felt something pop before sitting back up. He liked the spot in the bar. He could see all the various races come and go. Some would even ask for his advice. He was an old spacer, and his knowledge of the sector was vast. It said he's visited almost every system and most inhabited planets in his 170 galactic years. And some of the young would ask for stories of his adventures. But he was tired of traveling and settled down on the station orbiting the plasmid miasma. So, he was only slightly surprised when a tall, reptilian-like alien approached him. The being looked familiar, but he couldn't quite place which race it was. At least 2.5 meters tall, more muscular arms, bipedal, and a torso covered in tough, leather-like plates. Its head was triangular, and a blunt face containing 6 eyes, a pair of nostrils, and a wide mouth with dozens of small but sharp-looking teeth. It also had 8 pronounced fangs, 4 on top and 4 on bottom. It wore only boots, a type of pants, and a utility harness on its torso. "You are Gasilik the Thorough," the alien put it bluntly. Gasilik stared up at the tall being before saying, "I am, and who do I have the pleasure of speaking with?" "I am Bahazaman of the Cadriacs," he answered. Ah yes, the Cadriacs. He remembered now, his mind searching for what he knew about them. No wonder he didn't recognize them. They were rarely seen outside their body armor and enclosed helmets. They were a warlike race from out near the rim. They only appeared in this sector 20 years ago by raiding the outer worlds. 5 years after that, they carved themselves a foothold in the sector at the expense of the Faturi. Without asking, the Cadric sat down next to the Gasilik. "I understand that you know many things about this sector," Buhazum stated, blunt and straight to the point. Gasilik thought to himself before answering, "Yes, I am well-traveled." "Good. Will you come with me?" Bahazum added. Taken aback, Gasilik replied, "Why in the hell would I do that?" "To meet my superiors. You'll be well compensated," Bahazum said. Getting paid does change things, Gasilik thought to himself. "And how far would I have to go?" he asked. Bahazum promptly replied, "Compartment 10, level 1. So they were at the station, and in one of the first-class quarters. Interesting, Gasilik thought before replying, "Lead on!" It took about 10 minutes to reach the compartment, and when the door opened, he was slightly surprised to see just how many Cadrics were in there. There were maybe 11 of them, but after studying the Cadrics for a moment, he concluded 6 were guards. Unlike Buhazim, they wore a variety of raiment that concealed their bodies. It suddenly occurred to Gasilik that since they were rarely seen without their helmets and body armor, they were essentially in disguise and able to move about freely with no one the wiser. He started to wonder just how many Cadrics were hiding in plain sight across the sector. Bahazim stepped forward and bowed. "This is the Galsec of Thero, as you ordered, your majesty." Bahazim stepped aside so the others could see Gasilik. Finding out he was meeting royalty caught him off guard, but he managed to recover. He gave a bow and spoke, "Your Majesty," and then added, "I apologize, but I do not know who is who." A richly dressed Cadric stepped forward. "I am Mbasa, Vestas to Empress Shiptu, second wife of Emperor of Anunnaki the Fourth," he said while using a sweeping gesture to the Empress. Gasilik turned and bowed to the Empress. "My apologies, Your Majesty, for not knowing who you are." The Empress just gave a regal nod of her head. To be honest, Gasilik couldn't tell the difference between male and female Cadrics. Or were they all female, he wondered. Another Cadric stepped forward. "Grand Stratiko and Shag Kush Ana." The Grand Strakita stepped forward and pushed a button on the console. A map of the sector appeared, and the political boundaries were marked out. "We are embarking on a new campaign, and we need information about the races that might be involved.
what their military capabilities are, who their allies are, and which are their most important worlds," he said.
Gaslick was shocked at the question, and without thinking he uttered, "I can't do that. Help you kill an untold number of sentients." Empress Shiptu nodded to Inabusa, who then stepped forward. "The Empress understands your reluctance and offers a compensation of 2,000,000 galactic credits." Gaslick almost fell over from shock. He could almost buy his own station with that much. Not a big one, but still. After wrestling with his conscience, he agreed to the proposal. The Empress nodded in satisfaction. Grand Stracto Inchak Kush Anna pointed at an area of the map.
"We plan to attack these humans and absorb their territory into the Empire. We've heard rumors they do not maintain a large fleet, and that they are afraid of war, that they'll negotiate a way out of it."
Gaslick stared at them in horror. "You mean to attack the humans?" taking care to pronounce it correctly for them.
"Yes, in 2 standard months,"
the Grand Stracto informed him. After Gaslick regained his composure, he said, "No one in their right mind attacks the humans." The Stracto in Shakush Anna laughed.
"Why is that? They barely have a dozen systems. We have thousands."
"What kind of threat could a race afraid to fight be to us?"
"Ask the Takazians,"
Gaslick muttered to himself, not intending for the Kodriks to hear. But their hearing was better than he knew.
"Who are these Takazians? How can we contact them?"
"By summoning their ghosts," Gaslick thought to himself.
"You can't. They are extinct in this sector, and there are only rumors of small drifter fleets of survivors, never staying in one place too long. And these humans are responsible. So they beat some minor power, probably only a few planets, and we're supposed to be afraid of them."
The Grand Stracto and Shakash Anna scoffed. Gaslick replied, "Over 80 galactic years ago, the Takazians once controlled most of the sector," using his finger to indicate where it was. 138 systems, 600 habitable planets and moons, hundreds more with vast resources to be harvested. "Including the dead rock we currently orbit," Gaslick finished. For a moment, Gaslick thought he saw doubt in some of their faces, but not being familiar with them, he wasn't sure. Grand Stracto in Kush Anna was not one of them.
"We are the Kodriks and fear no one, especially a race afraid of war, even if they won 1 decade ago."
"Go on with your explanation as to why we shouldn't attack them," the Empress said. All of the Kodriks seemed shocked as she spoke. "Your Majesty, this alien is not worthy to hear you speak," Inabasa exclaimed. Grand Stracto Inchak Kush Anna also spoke.
"Your Majesty, forgive me, but the Second Empress, you are only here in a ceremonial role."
With a glare, the Empress addressed them both. "That is usually so, but I feel this isn't important enough for the Emperor to hear all of it, and not just selected tidbits." She addressed the Stracto directly. "Would you like me to contact my husband, the Emperor, and see how he responds to my break-in ceremony, especially after I tell him how you are ignoring the Theron's warning?" "I like this one," Gaslick thought to himself. Both of the Kodriks acquiesced to the Empress. Looking back towards Gaslick, "Please continue," she ordered.
"Yes, Your Majesty," Gaslick bowed and replied. "The humans are not afraid of war because of what the enemy may do. Humans are afraid of what it might make them become," Gaslick started. "I had a human friend long ago that once explained it to me. Like you, the Turkesians saw them as easy pickings," Gaslick explained. "The humans were new to the galactic community and had just started to expand out of their home system. And when the Takazians found out just how much time passed between the humans' first steps into space and how it took almost 2 centuries to leave their home system, they assumed that they weren't very smart either. I found out from my friend later that it took them so long to leave their cradle because they had been warring amongst themselves almost the entire time," Gaslick stressed. The Empress spoke up again. "So they were fighting a civil war that whole time?" "No, Your Majesty. They were never a single government in the first place. They only formed that after finding out that other races existed. A damaged ship inadvertently fell out of FTL in their system. The crew was dead, so the only source of information was the ship. So they examined the ship and reverse-engineered what they found, mixed with their technology," Gaslick added. "It had long been a dream of the humans to find life outside their world, so they were ecstatic to meet other races. They explored, they traded, they shared knowledge freely. So they were caught off guard when the Takazian fleet entered their home systems and attacked them without warning. The humans suffered enormous casualties at first, but they weren't helpless," Gaslick said. "They'd fought wars amongst themselves for almost their entire existence, and they were very good at it. But they were comparatively novices in deep space combat. It took them months to drive the invaders out, and the cost was high. For both sides," Gaslick paused. "I've heard rumors that Caucasian survivors were traumatized by their later engagements with the humans, especially the ground forces. As the departing act of defiance, the Caucasian launched a missile containing a biological weapon at Earth, the human cradle world. My human friend told me it caused an ecological disaster on their planet. Vast swaths of the planet became sterile. The biological agents were less effective against humans than the Caucasian had hoped. The humans had a long history of dealing with virulent and deadly diseases, which helped to protect them from the biological agents. It just made them sick, but only killed the weakest of them," Gaslick explained. "Unfortunately for the Takazian, this included large numbers of their youngest children." Gaslick continued. "As my friend told it, they could forgive the initial invasion. It wasn't something they hadn't done in their internal conflicts. They might have answered the ecological devastation of their world with a punitive expedition against the Caucasians, something of equivalent damage. But the Caucasians killed their children by the millions, and that enraged them. Most races only have a couple words that refer to revenge. The humans have a dozen, and none of them are good," Gaslick explained. "Vendetta, revenge, a reckoning, retribution, reprisals, retaliation, vengeance, an eye for an eye, vindictive, and others. But the Caucasians' actions brought one of the worst types to the borders. The humans called it blood vengeance. What the Caucasians did could only be answered with their blood, and lots of it. My human friend explained that humans' race contains a darkness inside their soul that they fight to suppress. When it escapes and takes over an individual, the death and destruction they cause can ruin dozens of lives," Gaslick continued. "But when that darkness escapes and runs free through their entire race, then it can inflict horrors beyond your imagination. He once showed me their history, and I thought that I'd seen enough in my lifetime that nothing could shock me. I was wrong. The things they'd done to each other were the most horrific things I'd ever seen, and that was to each other. So imagine what would happen to an alien race. And this act brought out the very worst of them. It was like they went insane with grief," Gaslick said. "They combined their things learned from captured Caucasian technology with their own. These new warships were black as night, with wings to make them look like they're some kind of nightmarish bird. Their body armor was jet black, with their helmets stylized into monstrous faces. Not just things from their nightmares, but from the Caucasian too. They called this part of psychological warfare." Gaslick shuddered at the thought. "They attack their opponents' minds, not like a psychic or something, but by bringing your deepest fears to life. This is what traumatized the Caucasian survivors so badly. They couldn't understand the humans' ways of making wars. They stand up and fight when necessary, but humans prefer to use tricks and deception and mind games. They were like spirits, always striking where the Caucasian didn't expect them to. Destroy something vital, or kill some Caucasian soldiers and vanish before gods could respond. But things were different now. When their fleet came roaring out of their territories, they did not sneak, but bellowed like charging Gannok beasts. They wanted the Caucasian to know that they were coming, and they left a trail of destruction anywhere they went. Military or civilian, Nothing Tarkasian was left. No ships, no bases, no industries, and no Tarkasian. Those that didn't flee were roasted in nuclear fire or died choking on the dust flung into the air as human mass drivers lobbed asteroids at their colonies. Even abandoned facilities and colonies were obliterated like they didn't even want a memory of the Tarkasian. They didn't even bother garrisoning the worlds they took intact. They wrecked everything Tarkasian and left. This tactic also made it hard for the Tarkasian to determine where the humans would strike next, and left them running around to places still smoldering from the human attacks, but no humans were there. But there were times when the humans stayed and ambushed the Tarkasian ships that arrived. Their wreckage orbited a dead world. The humans left the Tarkasian homeworld for last, and after 5 years of war, they were ready for the end and surrounded the planet. Gaselic finished.
What happened to the Tarkasian homeworld? The Empress asked.
Gaselic pointed out the window before saying, Look for yourself. We're in orbit above it. The humans renamed it after the war was over. Once the war was finished and their children were avenged, they stepped back from their insanity and took stock of what they had done. They had a word for it: genocide. It was something from their past that brought great hatred towards the ones to carry it out, and now their entire race was stained with that crime. So they pulled back and abandoned all but the systems they now possess. But before they withdrew, they renamed the Tarkasian homeworld by Asma and requested it be used by everyone else as a reminder. Gaselic said. No one was eager to draw the humans' ire, so they agreed.
A reminder of what? Of what they would do to anyone else that attacked them, one of the Cadrics he didn't know the name of said.
Gaselic thought for a moment. Well, yes, but that wasn't why they did it. The term miasma was from one of their earliest myths, a term for a type of guilt that runs so deep that it permanently stains all of their race and their blood. It affects all of them, even the ones living today. They collectively let that darkness run free, and the results were so horrific that they don't feel that it can be forgiven, only atoned for. Every year they mark the fall of the Tarkasian homeworld, not with celebration, but reminders of what they did. Their avoidance of war is not to protect themselves. It is to protect others from them. He could tell that only the Empress truly got his point. The rest of them, he didn't seem convinced, and Grand Strakito and Shag-Kash-Ana still thought their military was too superior to lose. Gaselic sat in his favorite chair, enjoying just being amongst others. It was 3 years ago this week that he tried to convince the Cadrics that attacking the humans was a bad idea, and that killing their kids was a worse idea. And now they were losing the war badly. Of the 138 systems they started with, they have less than 21 left. But not all of those systems fell to the humans. 57 of them broke away from their own empire and allied with the humans. They are led by a very smart empress, who not only listened to my advice, but took it a step further. When her foolish husband allowed Grand Strakito and Shag-Kash-Ana to attack the humans, after the Grand Strakito and Shag-Kash-Ana tried to intimidate the humans by glassing several civilian colonies, she sent a message to the humans. She offered a solution, allowing them to get revenge but avoid making the same mistakes as before. She would break away from the Empire with as many systems as possible and ally with the humans. Cadric civilians could flee to her new empire for safety. Her forces could even help evacuate those who surrendered, including military personnel. Meanwhile, the humans could wreck her former husband's empire as they liked. She also told them that she would be handing over any of the officers responsible for glassing the human colonies for trial. Gaselic looked forward to seeing Grand Strakito in Shag-Kash-Ana on trial. End of story. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters: Bushmaster 117, Casper Arnholtz, Drakzoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.